ensure the security inside of Microsoft Teams. And then onto the compliance side of view, we will see information barriers and then again sensitivity labels, how they play important role to ensure the compliance for your data inside of the Microsoft Teams. So let's start with Microsoft Sentinel and Microsoft Teams.
So the Microsoft Teams as a part of Microsoft 365 and Office 365 services follows all the security best practices and the procedures. So the team serves a central role in communication and data sharing in the Microsoft 365 cloud. And since team suggests on so many technologies in the cloud, it can benefit from human and automated analysis. So as a large number of users are using a various Office 365 apps and services like including Exchange, SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, it is essential to keep a track of user activities. So let's have this overview of Azure Sentinel. So Microsoft Azure Sentinel is a scalable cloud native security information event management that we called SIEM and the security orchestration automated response SOR solution. So Azure Sentinel delivers the intelligent security analytics and threat intelligence across the enterprise, providing a single solution for alert detection, threat visibility, proactive hunting, and the threat response. So let's see where this Azure Sentinel helps us. So it's help us to collect data at cloud scale across all users, devices, applications, and infrastructure, both on premises as well as in multiple clouds. It also helps to detect previously undetected threats and minimize the false positives using a Microsoft Analytics and unparalleled threat intelligence. It's also investigate threats with artificial intelligence and hunt for suspicious activities at scale, tapping into years of cybersecurity work at Microsoft. It also responds to incidents rapidly, so with built-in orchestration and automation of common tasks.
So let's quickly see in a presentation that how this one works. So whenever we are working with Office 365 or Microsoft 365 as a broader umbrella term, we have got various apps and services that we usually work across. So we do have OneDrive where we share the personal kind of an files. We do have a SharePoint where we store all of the teams related file, or even whenever we create a Microsoft Teams team, even the SharePoint site gets created in the background. And then again, we do have an Exchange where all of the conversation that take place, all of the emails that we exchange, that gets stored. And then we do have a Microsoft Teams, which is again using each of these services, including OneDrive, SharePoint, and Exchange, all across for its functioning. So that means we do have lots of services that we use as independent service like OneDrive, SharePoint, Exchange, or Teams, or we use it as a kind of a background service from Microsoft Teams to get our work done. So in an organization, we do have many users, many guest accounts, many collaborators, even there could be users from your partner organizations as well. At the same time, we have various roles of administrators. So we do have Teams admin, SharePoint admin, global admin, a reports reader, and many more roles. So that means in a day we have got lot many transactions going on our Office 365 environment. And then again, it is very much essential to track what is happening across your environment. But it is a challenge, like we cannot run behind all of those users to see like what they are doing, what kind of an activities each of the user or each of the admin they are performing with their role. So what Office 65 does for this is at least it records all of those activities inside something called as Office 365 audit logs. So let's say, for example, if you just want to quickly see those audit logs, you can come to the compliance admin center. So you can just go to compliance.microsoft.com, and then again, once you go across solutions and navigate to the audit, here you will be able to see all of the logs which are happening for your Microsoft 365. So you will be able to select a date range in which you want to monitor a certain activity, and then we do have got various activities that we will be able to track. So let's say, just for an example, you want to track down like what is happening inside of your teams. So you will be able to see like who has created team, deleted team, added channels, all those kind of an thing. Because again, now that we have got shared channels kind of an capability coming, so through which even we are not restricting, or at least Microsoft is not only restricting this boundary of Microsoft Teams within the organization, but again, we will be able to have the collaboration across the other organization, other partners. So in that case, this kind of an activity log or audit log will play an important role in this. So we will be able to track down all those details, maybe at the Teams level, at the SharePoint level, as well as Exchange, or even at the OneDrive kind of an thing. So we can see what kind of an activities that we have got. If in case we want to specifically um, see the activities which has been covered by any of the user, in that case we can just type the name of the user, and then we'll be able to see like what that particular user has done. And once you just click on search, obviously it will go ahead into that audit logs, which will be there for 90 days or 1 year based on the what kind of a subscription that you have got. And then you will be able to see like what each of the user has done for that particular area. But as I talk, like there will be a restriction that this log will be available here just for 90 days or maybe 1 year based on what kind of an E3 or E5 kind of a subscription that you have got. And then again, after that, you won't be able to drill back into the history to get into those details. So in that case, this Azure Sentinel or Microsoft Sentinel will play an important role. So what it usually does is, this is a boundary of Office 365, wherein all of the audit logs are being created based on the activities performed by user or admin. And then we do have got Azure side of it, wherein we can create Azure Log Analytics Workspace (LAW), and then we can use something called as an data connector. So we do have a specific data connector available for Office 365, through which we'll be able to connect all of the audit logs that we have got from the Office 365 audit logs to the Azure Sentinel. So this data connector will help us to get all those audit logs from Office 365 logs into the Azure Sentinel. And then this Azure Sentinel or Microsoft Sentinel is very much powerful, through which we'll be able to do all those kind of an threat detection, even detect any kind of an anomalies that we have got. Even we'll be able to collect the data at the cloud scale across all those users, devices, applications, and then we'll be able to investigate the threats with some kind of an artificial intelligence which is baked in into the Microsoft Sentinel. So this is the overall picture, like what can happen with once you connect all of your Office 365 audit logs to Azure Sentinel. All right. Okay. So with that, let's get started and see how we'll be able to set it up and how this Microsoft Sentinel or Azure Sentinel is helpful to detect all those things.
So Sentinel lets administrators do security management in one location, and this includes the managing of a third-party devices, Microsoft Threat Protection, also Microsoft 365 workloads. So the Sentinel workbooks and the runbooks can make security monitoring systematic. And more than one Microsoft 365 subscription can be surfaced in the same instance of Azure Sentinel. Also, this allow for a real-time monitoring and hunting for the threats in historical log files. Let's see how we can just collect these Teams logs. So the first one is we have to enable these audit logs in Microsoft 365.
So as like we have seen that once you come to the compliance.microsoft.com or compliance admin center, this is the place from where you will be able to turn on the audit logs. So by default, these audit logs are turned on, but again, there might be chances that someone might have turned off this audit log. So best place to check that, come to this place, compliance.microsoft.com. Under solutions, go for audit and then see if the audit logging has been turned on or not. So if in case if it is not turned on, there will be a button or message here saying that click to have your audit logs turned on. So click that and it will start getting all of the logs based on the activities being performed by your users or by admins. Again, there is a PowerShell support as well available for this, but only bottom line here is that we should have the audit logs turned on to have the other things done. Yeah.
So the audit logging will be turned on by default for Microsoft 365 and Office 365 enterprise organizations. So however, when setting up a new Microsoft 365 or Office 365 organization, you should verify the auditing status for your organization. So when auditing in a Microsoft Purview compliance portal is turned on, user and admin activity from your organization is recorded in the audit log and retained for 90 days and up to the 1 year depending on the license assigned to the users. So however, your organization may have reasons for not wanting to record and retain the audit log data. In those cases, a global admin may decide to turn off the auditing in Microsoft 365. So that's number two. Step second is the connect Office 365 logs to Azure Sentinel. So this Azure Sentinel provides a built-in connector for Office 365 logs, which enables you to ingest the team's data into Azure Sentinel together with other Office 365 data.
So let's see in practice how that thing happens. So right now I'm into the Azure portal, and from here you can go into the create a resource and create the Azure Sentinel or Microsoft Sentinel, and from here you will be able to connect the logs from your Office 365 or Microsoft 365 into the Microsoft Sentinel. So in this case, what you can do is once you have the Microsoft Sentinel created, so this is the overview page where it will show all of the events or alerts or incident which has been happening all across the systems which you have connected with Microsoft Sentinel. And now that, let's say for example, if you want to go ahead and connect to any of the data that you have got in the other system, under configuration we do have got something called as data connectors. Okay, so you can just click this data connectors, and here we do have almost 125 kind of an connectors available through which we'll be able to connect to the underlying systems. So it could be Office 365 or in any of the Microsoft related system, or even it could be any of the third party system as well. So what I will do is I will just search for Office 365, and at least we have got two connectors available. First one is for the Office 365 and second one is for the Defender for Office 365, which is still in preview. So I'll just go ahead, select this one. Here it will just show the description about what this particular connector do, and what kind of a data we'll be able to get from here. So I will just click open connector page so that we'll be able to go ahead and make a connection from our Office 365 to the Azure Sentinel. So this connection will simply help us to pull out the all of the logs which are available in the audit logs of Office 365 into Azure Sentinel. So in the configuration here, I just have configured to get the Teams data, but again, based on your choice, you can either go with Exchange and SharePoint as well. OneDrive, it is again part of SharePoint, so we don't have any specific other configurations needed for OneDrive. But once you turn on the configuration for SharePoint, it will also cover OneDrive under the hood. Okay, so now that again, earlier we will be we had a possibility to even connect to the other tenants and then get the data from there. So if in case previously if you had connected your Office 365 tenant to the Microsoft Sentinel, even you will be able to see those. But right now we do have a limitation that we will be able to only connect to the tenant in which our Sentinel is. So there will be kind of an one-to-one mapping between the Office 365 tenant and the Azure tenant that we have got. So this is the place from where we'll be able to go ahead and have the connection done. Once you miss right now, I just have created this. So that's the reason we don't see any option. But once you go ahead, turn this on and connect all of the logs from Exchange, SharePoint or Teams, you will be able to apply those changes and have this connection created. So in the next steps, what we can do is it gives us some kind of an recommended workbooks. So through that workbook, we will be able to see what kind of a data which is happening behind the scene. So let us understand what is meant by the workbook.
So after you connected your data sources to Azure Sentinel, you can monitor the data using Azure Sentinel integration with Azure Monitor Workbooks, which provides the flexibility in creating a custom workbooks. So Azure Sentinels allows you to create a custom workbooks across your data and also comes with built-in workbook templates to allow you to quickly gain insights across your data as soon as you connect a data source.
All right, so let us see now that we have got this Azure Sentinel. So I will just open up that Azure Sentinel, and then we do have got workbooks here. So through that workbook, we do have few of the templates available, which we can use to go ahead and use them as it is. At the same time, even we will be able to create our own workbook and then play with that. So these are few of the templates available. Let's say, for example, if I just search for Office 365, there should be templates available for that as well. So even we can go ahead and view that template. So what it will do is this one has got few baked in KQL, that means Kusto query languages, which is kind of an programming language through which we'll be able to get the data from Microsoft Sentinel and show that into maybe a table format or maybe into some kind of an um, some kind of an bar chart or graph that you can see as an image onto the right hand side. At the same time, even you will be able to create your own workbook as well. So here I already have created one workbook called as Teams Hunting. So simply you can just click on this add workbook and you will be able to create new workbook. So this is the um, new workbook that I had created, which is only getting into the data from the Azure Sentinel and giving us back. So right now I don't have any data which is coming from there, but otherwise this one is nothing but the KQL query through which we'll be able to get the data. So probably I can just show you that KQL. So you can just click on edit, and this is the editing experience through which we'll be able to see like what kind of an query that we had written. So let me just click on edit. So Office activity, this is the Azure Sentinel or Microsoft Sentinel part wherein all of the logs are getting pushed from your Office 65 into the Sentinel. And then here you can write all those kind of queries which are specific to your data. So in this case, I'm only interested in the members who had joined us. So the operation I'm concentrating here is member added, and then only role which has been added here is three. That means all of the guest users that has been added to our team. Because as I said, we also now have got possibility of shared channels, as well as even we can invite the guest user. So this kind of an KQL query will help us to see under which teams we do have all those guest user and what kind of an operation those guest users are performing. So we don't have to go into each of the team one by one and try to get that information, but at least this query will simply help us to get all that information at one go. Similarly, I do have another query which help us to see like who are the users who have recently joined, as well as who are the users or admins who have recently changed their role. So again, we do have a KQL here, so which will help us to only concentrate onto the operation of member added, and then again based on what kind of roles that they have changed. So we will be able to write all those kind of an KQL. So only thing like here we will have to get ourselves versed with the KQL and then write all those KQL queries to do all those kind of an threat intelligence. Again here, if you need, you can create an incident. So let's say for example, something is happening and then you want to create an incident out of it. Let's say, for example, someone has shared the file outside of your organization, or maybe someone has added guest user directly to your Microsoft Teams team. In that case, you can go ahead and create all those kind of an incidents from here. And when the incidents is happen, even if you want to rectify that or you want to notify any of the user, even you will be able to do anything of that sort, right? So this is how that what we can be able to do with Microsoft Sentinel and Microsoft Teams. Now that let us look into the other feature of security, which is safe attachments.
So we often attach files to Teams conversations, and however, if the files originated from these untrustworthy sources, they can become a security risk. So these safe attachments can prevent a malicious code from running and intercept other forms of attacks. So the safe attachment for Microsoft Teams is a feature of Microsoft Defender for Office 65, and the safe attachments helps detect and block the files that are identified as malicious in Microsoft Teams sites and the document libraries. So when a file in Microsoft Teams has been identified as malicious, Microsoft Defender for Office 365 locks the file by integrating with the file store. So the image on this slide shows an example of a malicious files detected in a library, although the block files is still listed in the document library, so people can't open, copy, move, or share that file, but they can delete the block files.
All right, so let us quickly see a demo how we'll be able to create that safe attachment kind of a thing. So for that, again, safe attachments for SharePoint, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams is not enabled by default. So the admin has to go ahead and enable these safe attachments. So admin can turn it on using UI as well as from PowerShell. So to do that, what we have to do is firstly we need to go to the Microsoft 365 Defender portal, which is sitting at security.microsoft.com. So if you are a global administrator or if you are a security administrator, you will be able to turn on these safe attachments. So here, simply under this policies, means at least we do have these policies and rule which are under this email and collaboration. So you can simply click on these policies and rule, and this will help us to define those safe attachments. So once you go into the policies and rule, here we do have got policies through which we will be able to create that. Okay, so here means once you go into that, you will be able to do all those things. Only thing here now is that I'm not able to see that. Let me just do, okay, let me just go into the thread policies. Okay, so from here at least we will be able to do all those kind of safe attachments. So here you can see we do have both the features available, safe attachments as well as safe links. So once you click on safe attachments, at least this is a place from where you will be able to create any of the safe attachment policy, or at least at a minimum you can click onto the global settings, and you just need to turn on the toggle which is under the global settings to turn on the Defender for Office 365, for SharePoint, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. So what can happen with this is, let's say for example, whenever we are using Teams, obviously through Teams we can do the normal chat, normal conversation, but at the same time we can also attach any of the file to that conversation. So let's say for example, now that we are probably um, having a discussion with any of the guest user, and by somehow that guest user uploads any of the file, and that file is maybe containing any kind of a virus kind of a thing. In that case, we should have some kind of a mechanism to detect and then do this safe attachments. So it is just for the demonstration purpose, I went ahead and added couple of files which were thread oriented, and then you can see that this safe attachment went ahead and marked those file as not safe. So in this kind of an things, what we can do is these files will be marked as a blocked files, and then you won't be able to open, copy, move, or share these kind of files. But only thing that you can do from this is you will be only able to delete this kind of file. So this safe attachment is kind of a very helpful feature through which you will be able to protect your environment from any kind of an malicious file upload. Okay, all right. So even these kind of policies are also available directly inside SharePoint as well as OneDrive. So if you have a look at this once you turn on this Defender for Office 65, this one enables that safe attachment feature for SharePoint, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. So you don't have to do anything specifically for these three services at one by one, but this one setting will help you to target all three environments, all three apps and services at one go, right? So this was just the quick feature introduction of security measure, what we can do with safe attachments. Now that let's talk about safe links.
So the Safe Links is a feature in Defender for Microsoft 365 that provides a URL scanning. So after you turn on the Safe Links protection for Microsoft Teams, URL in the Teams can check against a list of known malicious links. When the protected user clicks the link, for example, time of a click protection, the URLs are not rewritten. So if a link is found to be malicious, user will have a different experience. So for example, if the link was clicked in Teams conversation, group chat or a form channels, the warning page as shown in the screenshot below will appear in the default web browser. And if the link was clicked from a pin tab, then the warning page will be appear in a Teams interface within the tab, and the option to open the link in a web browser is disabled for the security reason. So depending on how the late users clicks through to the original URL settings in the policy is configured. So the user will or will not be allowed to click through the original URL. So we recommend that you don't select the let user click through to the original URL setting, so the users can't click through the original URL. And when you turn on or turn off the safe links protection for Teams, it might take up to the 24 hours for the change to take the effect. So let's see how this safe links works in a Teams. So at a high level, here is how the safe links protection works for URLs in Microsoft Teams. A user starts the Teams app. Microsoft 365 verifies that the user's organization includes the Microsoft Defender for Office 365 and that the user is included in an active safe link policy where the protection for Microsoft Teams is turned on. And then the last one is the URL are validated at the time of the click for the user in chats, group chats, channels, and tabs.
Okay, so let us see quickly how we'll be able to also handle these safe links. So again, what we need to do is, again, we need to go into the security.microsoft.com, and here under the email and collaboration we do have got policies and rule, and from there we can get into the threat policies, and here we have got safe links. So these safe links will help you to just see if someone is sharing some kind of a malicious link onto the email message or maybe onto the Teams channel message or chat message. This one will scan that URL, and if in case that URL is suspicious, it will report something like this, so that you won't be able to click through that and then will not become a victim of any of the suspicious threat activity, right? So once you click on this safe links, again we do have got global settings here, and through that global settings, for example, if you want to block few of these domains, let's say for example you don't want to allow certain URLs which are coming from certain domains, let's say for example contoso.com or maybe in any of the other domains which you think are not safe for your users to click through. In that case, you can go ahead and then add those URLs here one by one. The next thing here is that you will be able to create a safe link policy. So you can just define the name of your policies. Maybe I can just open up the policy which I have created already, and then I can walk you through that. So through that policy, firstly, you need to include what kind of an recipients or what kind of a domains you want to target under that. So you can define that, and you also need to configure like for which protection settings you want to apply these settings for. So in this case, I only had selected for email and Teams. So these are the two places from where we want to go ahead and have that URL scanning done. And then once that click-through experience has been done, how you want to track the user clicks. So all those kind of an um, interface you can define, or all of those configurations that you can define, and then you can make that safe link kind of an experience available for your tenant, so that even if someone suspiciously or maybe intentionally try to send you some kind of a links which are not secure enough. In that case, this safe link feature will help you to secure your environment. All right. Okay. So with that, let's move into the next part, the compliance part now, like how we'll be able to use these information barriers inside of Microsoft Teams.
So Microsoft 365 enables the communication and collaboration across groups and organizations and support ways to restrict the communication and collaboration among a specific group of users when it is necessary. So this may include a situation or scenarios where you want to restrict the communication and collaboration between the two groups to avoid a conflict of interest from occurring in your organization. So this may also include the situation when you need to restrict the communication and collaboration between certain people inside your organization to safeguard the internal information. So these information barriers are supported in Microsoft Teams, SharePoint Online, and OneDrive for Business. A compliance administrator or information barriers administrator can define the policies to allow or prevent the communications between the groups of users in Microsoft Teams. So let's see some of these information barrier scenarios. So information barrier policies can be used for the situation like for a user in the day trader group should not communicate or share the files with the marketing team. Then for example, for finance personnel working on a confidential company information should not communicate or share the files with certain groups within their organization, or else for example an internal team with trade secret material should not call or chat online with the people in certain groups within their organization. For example, a research team should not call or chat online with a product development team. Then the another one is a banking sector, restrict the communication between the investment bankers and financial advisor. In general, communication between the sales and the research departments in an organization. When it's come to the education, the students in one school are not able to look up the contact details for the student of another school. And when it's come to the legal part, so maintaining the confidentiality of data that is obtained by the lawyer of a one client and preventing it from being accessed by a lawyer for the same firm who represents a different client. When it's come to the government sector, so the information access and control are limited across the departments and groups. For the professional services, a group of people in company is only able to chat with a client or a specific customer via the guest access during a customer engagement. So for all of these examples, scenarios, and there are many more also, the information barrier policies can be defined to prevent or allow the communications and the collaboration in Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, and OneDrive. So, such a policies can prevent the people from calling or chatting with those they should not, or enable people to communicate only with specific groups in Microsoft Teams. So, with information barrier policies in effect, whenever the users who are covered by those policies attempt to communicate and collaborate with others in Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, Online, or OneDrive, checks are done to prevent or allow the communication and collaboration as defined by the information barrier policies. So let's see what happens with the information barriers in this Microsoft Teams. So when the information barrier policies are in place, people who should not communicate or share the files with other specific users won't be able to find, select, chat, or call those users. So with information barriers, checks are in place to prevent the unauthorized communication and the collaboration, and information barriers applies to Microsoft Teams in chats and channels, SharePoint Online, and OneDrive. In Microsoft Teams, information barrier policies determine and prevent the following kinds of unauthorized communications: searching for a user, adding a member to a team, starting a chat session with someone, starting a group chat, inviting someone to join a meeting, sharing a screen, placing a call, sharing a file with another user, access to file through the sharing link. So if the people involved are included in an information barrier policy to prevent the activity, they will not be able to proceed. So, in addition, potentially everyone included in an information barrier policy can be blocked from communicating with the others in Microsoft Teams. So, when people affected by the information barrier policies are a part of the same team or a group chat, they might be removed from those chat sessions and further communications with the group might not be allowed.
Right. So these are the four steps by which we'll be able to configure the information barrier. So firstly, there are some prerequisites and permissions that we need to see. Those are in place. Secondly, we need to segment our users, and then we need to create the information barrier policies based on those segments. And then we can simply go ahead, apply that information policies based on the segments that we have created so that the communication will be allowed or blocked for those kind of end users. All right. So firstly, prerequisites. So these are the kind of an licensing requirements. At least we should have E5. Maybe we should have advanced compliance and the insider risk management to go ahead and start using the information barriers. Then the required permissions are like if you want to define or edit the information barriers, at least you should be a global administrator, compliance administrator, or information barrier compliance management role. Then for the directory data, the organization structure must be reflected in Azure AD by populating the correct user account attributes, for example, group membership, department name, those should be up to date. And then the common attributes including company, department, member of usage, location, or postal code can be used inside your information barriers. And then these are few of the custom attributes even that can be used to define your information barriers. Okay, so firstly, like you need to make sure that all of the information is in place. Let's say, for example, if you want to define an information barrier policy based on the departments, make sure that that entire data has been reflected into your Azure AD. So all of the users should have the department reflected to them. And again, for example, if it is a tedious task to go ahead and update it for each of the user from UI, even you can make use of the PowerShell just to see that you will be able to automate the process, right? Um, then again, we do have the scoped kind of a directory search, which will enable the directory search for Microsoft Teams. So before defining the information barrier policy, we should enable this, which will allow organization to create virtual boundaries that can control how users can define and communicate with the other users in the organization. So this is one place that you can do, and this is a screenshot from the Teams Admin Center. So like you can go into the org wide settings and team settings, and then from here you can just toggle on the scope directory search using Exchange Address Book Policy setting. So this is another prerequisite that we need to do, and obviously we'll have to wait for 24 hours to get this into the effect. And then we just need to see that information barrier policies work only if the target user has been assigned the Exchange Online license. Okay, and audit or logging should be obviously turned on so that we'll be able to go through that audit logs and then we'll be able to use that. Seventh thing is that we should have no exchange address book policies like ABPs, which will allow you to segment users into specific group to give them customized GALs, that means global address list in Outlook and Outlook on the web. And before you define and apply the information barrier policies, make sure no exchange address book policies are in place. Okay, and then we do have PowerShell modules to get it done. So you just need to install at least modules called as AZ and Exchange Online Management, and then you can connect to your Azure account and then connect to the IPPS session to define all of your information barrier policies. So these are few of the admin constraints which will be required for information barriers in Microsoft Teams. So at least it will need a read and write directory data, groups, and user profile kind of an permissions. Once you provide that, at least you will be able to go ahead and use that information barrier policies. So now that comes to the place to segment the users, so you can determine the policies to block or allow the communication between two groups. So let's say once you define the segment, you want to either allow the communication between those two segments, or either you want to block the communication between those two segments. So identify all those segments, list down what kind of segments you will need, and then plan accordingly. And one thing to note here is that a single user can be only part of one segment. You cannot have one user into the multiple segments. And then each segment can have only one information barrier policy applied. So again, these Azure Active Directory attributes are very much essential to define all those segments. So the use case here is that now that, let's say, for example, we have this HR, sales, and research as three departments in our organization, and we want to allow the communication between HR and sales, HR and research, but we don't want sales and research guys to talk to each other. So how we can do that? So for that, we can define HR segment by running this command new hyphen organization segment. And then we are defining the user group filter, which is from the Azure AD, the department where the user is marked as HR department user. They will fall under HR segment. Similar thing that we will do for sales segment, research segment. Once we do that, now that we need to define the information barrier policies for those segments. So first thing is that we need to block communication between segments, and then allow the segment to communicate only with other segment. So we can start by creating the information barrier policies. At least we can define three information barrier policies to restrict the communication from sales to research, and the reverse way, research to sales, and allow the communication from HR to research and HR to sales. So here we can define policy number one by defining something as new hyphen information barrier policy, and then we can specify the name of the segments which we want to restrict the communication. So in this case, sales and research. Similarly, we need to do the other way, that someone from research should not be able to reach out to sales. Once we do that, policy number three will allow us to have the information barrier policy in place for HR, sales, and research, so that we are allowing communication to them. And once we create those kind of an information barrier policies, firstly, that they has to be created into an inactive state. Once we do that, now that if you want to see all those information barrier policies, you can just run this command get have an information barrier policy to see all of these policies that you had defined. After that, all of the policies that we had created so far, those had to be created into the inactive mode. Now that what we can do is we can use this command set hyphen information barrier policy, defining an information barrier policy by its identity and make that active. So now that we are one by one going ahead and activating all of those information barrier policies. And as we do that, we'll have to wait for at least 30 minutes for system to start applying all those policies. And when the again, for example, if you want to go ahead and see what is the status of that, you will be also able to see the status as well. So in that case, you can just run the command, and then again you will be able to run the same command one more time, and you will be able to see the status. So when the synchronization is starting, the status will be now started, and when we'll have to wait until that status turns out to be a completed. Okay. Now that this is the thing about information barrier policies, quickly we will touch upon the sensitivity labels. Okay, so let us see like what is mean by sensitivity labels and how we can create that.
So the sensitivity labels allows the team's admins to protect and regulate access to the sensitivity organization content created during a collaboration within a teams. So let's say this sensitivity labels versus the team's classification. So the sensitivity label are different from team's classification, also known as an Azure Active Directory group classification. So the classifications are the text string that can be associated with Microsoft 365 group but don't have any actual policies associated with them. Let's see how we can just set up a level for teams, privacy level for the team. So you can create and configure a sensitivity label that when applied during a team creation allow users to create teams with a specific privacy, public or private settings.
Okay, let us firstly see like how the um, information, oh sorry, how the privacy level for these teams looks like. So now that I'm into the teams, and then when I go for creation of the team, I create from scratch, and then here we do have a sensitivity. So let's say now that if I go ahead and try to create a team with general sensitivity, here you can see that by default it has turned off option for creating the private, and only I can be able to create public or org-wide team. As soon as I again go back for a sensitivity as the sensitive, in that case, I will be only able to create the private kind of a team. So how we will be able to do it is with the, by defining the sensitivity labels for the containers, that is groups and site. So for that, what we need to do first is we need to go into the compliance.microsoft.com, which is Microsoft Purview Compliance Center. And then here we have got something called as information protection. So in this information protection, we just need to define the labels for which are targeted for the groups and sites. So in this case, we had created two labels. One is general and sensitive, which we were able to see, and then those are created with the scope of site and unified group. So once you do that, at least with that you will be able to control where you want to show those kind of labels or where you want to apply those. So now that for this scope we just have selected groups and site, and when it comes to the defining the protection setting, um, for the sensitivity label, we have it defined for privacy and external user setting as well as external sharing. That's the reason whenever I select the sensitivity label here, only I'm able to select private and not public and org wide teams. All right. And then again, I did the opposite way for the general by taking away these two settings. So whenever I go ahead and select the general, now I can only create public or org-wide team, but not the private team. So this is entirely done by this labeling part. Once you create the label, next thing is that you will have to publish the label to get it done. All right. So that was a quick part how we'll be able to do that. So again, for example, if you want to go ahead, do it with the PowerShell, even that is possible. And here are few of the references for our session. Like if you want to know more about or read more about security and compliance in Microsoft Teams, this is the best place to go ahead and start using. So as I said, we just have covered only 5 features at a pace, but it is very much beyond that. So maybe visit this link and know more about security and compliance kind of features in Microsoft Teams. So with that, thank you very much for having us. And then we do have a next session by Kat on insider risk management. Thank you.
Thank you and happy weekend.
Thanks, guys. It's been a great session. A lot of learning, as I said, on a team side. Um, so yes, I welcome Kat. So let me stop the recording first. Oh, give us a minute, Kat. I'm just setting up the system for the next
No
session.
worries. Yeah, that's no